On a TV show called Hunters Now, a news anchor opens with a speech about hunters. Right after, she introduces the night's guest of honor, the A-rank hunter, Ibuki Yugo. The host then asks Yugo about his recent incredible feat in the Great Snowfield Dungeon. Meanwhile, our protagonist watches this hunter boast about his flame mage class. That's Naomi Atsukasa, a 23-year-old man who looks clearly annoyed by the interview. He notices how everyone in the audience is staring at Ibuki Yugo with total reverence and awe. Seeing this whole scene, Atsukasa wonders why he can't be like that famous guy. His situation is that, despite being an S-rank, his stats are embarrassingly low. From there, the story flashes back to when the planet first began revolving around dungeons. Suddenly, mysterious portals started appearing everywhere, leading to unknown domains. These places were loaded with traps and dangerous creatures guarding the passages. However, they also contained magical items like full heal elixirs and dragon horns. Because of this, anyone who managed to claim these treasures became incredibly wealthy. At the same time, certain individuals began awakening special superhuman abilities. These people who entered the dungeons looking for items were called hunters. This completely overturned the social structure, and the economy became based on dungeons. In this new world, it didn't matter if you were a nobody. Someone like our hero still had a chance. With that hope, he looks at his status, which shows his S-rank trap masterclass. His special skill lets him command all the dangers within a dungeon. In a place filled with threats, controlling the traps is the same as controlling the entire dungeon. For that reason, Naomi Atsukasa was totally hyped when he awakened this overpowered class. That moment should have been the best of his life, but it happened 2 years ago. The story flashes back to when he went to obtain his hunter license, and the examiner asked him to demonstrate his skill. Brimming with confidence, our protagonist held out his hand and shouted to activate his ability. He attempted to trigger a trap on a wooden target in front of everyone. To his utter surprise, the skill didn't activate at all. Nothing happened. The instructor looked baffled and asked him what was going on. Deeply embarrassed, Naomi Atsukasa said it was nothing and requested one more chance. He then placed both hands on the wooden post, hoping to use his skill again. Despite all his effort, nothing occurred, leaving the poor guy utterly despondent. The examiner was already showing signs of impatience with the whole performance. Meanwhile, our protagonist began to panic, unable to believe what was happening. The audience started mocking him while the instructor glared at him with contempt. The man asked what he was doing, and Tsukasa desperately tried to explain. His skill description revealed that it forced the activation of traps inside dungeons. Suddenly, it clicked. He realized the skill must only work on real dangers. However, the examiner continued to stare at him with a hostile expression. Then the man remarked that sometimes imposters appear, inventing their own ranks. Tsukasa tried to argue back, showing his status screen and declaring he was an S-rank, but the instructor countered, saying no one can see another person's status window. In a final act of desperation, he begged to be tested in a real dungeon. The man immediately replied, "No, because you need a license and combat skills to enter." With nothing left to do, our protagonist asked what he was supposed to do. The examiner ignored him and said there are other jobs besides being a hunter. That response left Naomi Tsukasa completely lost and shocked by the harsh reality. Because of that, he couldn't become a hunter, and the job he got was at the association. Now, in a training room, several people are practicing their combat skills. Our protagonist is among them, training in boxing with great dedication. But just a moment later, he's brutally knocked out by a blonde guy with a cruel smirk. The bully grabs him by the hair without any mercy and orders him to do his job right. Apparently, his role is to serve as a punching bag for other hunters to train on. With a powerful kick, Naomi Atsukasa is sent flying with no chance to defend himself. Even without being able to use his skills, he managed to get a job as a training assistant. Just then, the blonde guy steps closer and says he still remembers him very well from the past. He claims Tsukasa was a loser in school who faked being an S-rank on the exam. This is Asanuma, an old classmate who now vents his frustrations on him. Even while being beaten, our protagonist thinks to himself that he really is an S-rank. Hearing this, Asanuma grows even angrier and lunges at him with all his strength. He screams for him to confess the truth once and for all while kicking him violently. After beating the poor guy up, Asanuma asks if he's finally going to drop that idea. Then, Asanuma mentions the special permit that non-hunters need to enter dungeons. With his face battered, our protagonist brings up the promise that he'd get the permit if he could take it. The bully simply turns away and calls him pathetic for having the nerve to call him out. The two stare each other down, their faces full of hate and determination, showing neither will back down. Seeing this, Asanuma says he understands our protagonist's obsession with wanting to enter a dungeon. With a cruel smile, he suggests one last test to see if the poor guy deserves his help. They move away from the other hunters, and Naomi Tsukasa asks what this final test is. The bully says it's pretty simple and orders the guy to grab a piece of paper he's holding. That paper is the signed permit, and the test is to take the document from his hand. Our protagonist feels a flicker of hope. But Asanuma isn't finished talking yet. To get the document, he'll have to endure attacks from two guys who just appeared. He recognizes both of them as the same bullies who used to torment him alongside Asanuma back in school. Even knowing he's about to get a brutal beating, he has no choice but to accept the challenge for the dungeon. From there, a painful ordeal begins as the guy takes non-stop punches and kicks. Watching this, Asanuma is shocked by the guy's tenacity and determination to enter a dungeon. With that, Asanuma approaches holding the permit and comments that since he's taking it all so seriously, he rips the document right in his face and says that's exactly why he can't let him go. Our protagonist's eyes widen in pure shock and rage at the bully's attitude. The bully continues tearing the paper and laughs, saying he hates the guy's hopefulness. Naomi Atsukasa grits his teeth in fury but can't do anything to stop it. In a burst of anger, he screams Asanuma's name and tries to charge at the bully, but the bully is quicker and grabs our protagonist's arm firmly. A moment later, a magic dagger appears, and he plunges it into the guy's hand without a shred of mercy. The other guys are impressed by Asanuma's skill and comment on how strong hunters are. With that, the blonde guy says he failed the test and tells our protagonist to just give up. Lying on the ground with the dagger in his hand, he curses himself for falling into his classmate's trap. He already knew it was all a sham and that the bully would never keep his promise. The truth is, the permit system exists, but whoever recommends a civilian becomes responsible for them. There are only downsides for the recommender, and no one takes on that kind of task unless some wealthy person pays an enormous sum. No one accepts that role, especially not Asanuma. Despite this, he needed something to cling to so he wouldn't completely lose his mind. Even battered and humiliated, his hope still endured. He believed that if he could just enter a dungeon, his miserable life would finally change. That was the only thing our protagonist could still hold onto after everything. Suddenly, a mysterious red bolt of lightning strikes, right in the city's center, terrifying everyone. A random man stands in shock, witnessing the destruction the lightning caused all around him. Looking up at the sky, he tries to make sense of what on earth is happening to the world. Someone shouts a warning for him to watch out for what's coming up behind him at that very moment. Immediately after, an entire building begins to collapse right before everyone's eyes. In his expression, we see pure terror and desperation at the chaotic scene unfolding. The sky turns blood red, and the city becomes a battlefield in an instant. Meanwhile, on a large screen, a reporter begins delivering breaking news. According to the Hunter Association, dungeon breaks are occurring all over the world. With the entire planet turning into one massive dungeon, a beam of energy is unleashed. The population plunges into total panic as devastation and chaos spread rapidly. Tsukasa is frozen with fear as he watches a colossal red dragon ravage the city. He sinks into complete despair at the chaos unfolding around him. To protect himself, the man dives to the ground just as the creature's tail sweeps right over him. Amid the rubble, he spots the silhouette of a winged monster against the reddish sky. His eyes widen as he realizes the world has become one giant dungeon. Confronted with this, he recalls his Trapmaster class, which specializes in controlling the dangers of dungeons. A blue aura surrounds him, and he realizes he can finally use his abilities. This catastrophic event became known as the Great Dungeon Break. From that moment on, the portals that separated the worlds shattered all at once. With a confident smirk, our protagonist activates his first skill, Trap Scan. He thinks that if the world has turned into a dungeon, his skill has to work now. His eyes glow blue as he detects all the traps around him. A map-like view reveals the exact location of every nearby danger. With a relieved smile, Tsukasa realizes his power was never a lie. Now he's certain he can finally become a true hunter. Normally, the dangers scattered throughout dungeons only serve to give hunters a hard time. But for our protagonist, it's different because his power shows the precise position of each threat. From here on out, everything becomes easier since he knows exactly where all the dangers lie. With a look full of confidence, he now has total control of the situation. Suddenly, he spots a night monster chasing a mother and her son in the middle of the street. Without hesitation, Tsukasa grabs a metal pipe from the ground to use as a weapon. He believes that, with the power of a trapmaster, he can take down that creature. Meanwhile, the woman screams for her son to run because the monster is nearly upon them. In the rush, the little boy trips and falls to the ground in complete panic. His mother looks back, terrified, seeing that her son, Takuru, has been left behind. The creature then stops right in front of the boy, who is frozen with fear. With a cruel smile, the monster raises its sword, ready to strike the child. Moments later, the blade swings down toward little Takuru. But at the last second, our protagonist appears and blocks the blow using only the metal pipe. Furious, he glares at the monster and shouts for the creature to bring it on. With a confident grin, Tsukasa announces that the trap to take down the monster is already set. He then dodges a horizontal swing from the creature with remarkable agility. Immediately after, he jumps back to lure the monster into the right spot. At that moment, the pipe he was using gets stuck in the ground, exactly where he intended. The armored knight approaches cautiously, clearly not understanding the man's strategy. From a distance, our protagonist watches as the monster steps precisely where he planned. He then confirms with a smile that the trap lies right beneath the creature. At that instant, a blue light glows and a magic circle forms, activating the trap. A massive blast of blue energy shoots upward with tremendous force. The trap's power is so overwhelming that the monster has no chance of escape. A pendulum with a giant axe appears and mercilessly slices the creature in two. Seeing this, our protagonist celebrates because his plan worked flawlessly. He reflects that his fighting style relies on taking out monsters by using traps in the environment. In the background, the mother hugs Kuru, who is crying with relief after being saved just in time. Our protagonist smiles, satisfied to see the family finally safe. He thinks that even mid-level hunters would struggle against that monster. With his face slightly dirty, he surveys the chaotic situation that has overtaken the city. In the distance, he watches the mother and son embracing safely after the ordeal. The woman picks up the boy and runs far away while Tsukasa watches them leave. Suddenly, a group of armored knights appears, and he realizes he can't fight them one by one. With no time to waste, he decides to use another ability to handle the threat. Raising his hand and shouting powerfully, he activates all the traps in the area simultaneously. As a result, one of the monsters is caught off guard by a magic circle that materializes out of thin air. The skill strikes the creature dead-on with a huge explosion of energy bursting from the ground. Immediately after, several blue spheres appear around the other monsters, signaling more dangers approaching. The forced activation works, letting him use the traps without needing to touch them. After crushing the enemies beneath falling boulders, he levels up to level 2, and his skills improve. Seeing this, he gets excited because as an S rank, he can learn new skills and become stronger. Some civilians who had been hiding are shocked to see boulders falling from the sky. One approaches Tsukasa, asking for help and wondering where they should run. Our protagonist says he's not an official hunter, but they need to find a safe zone. He explains these places are zones inside dungeons free of monsters and traps. Normally, finding such a place would require a large exploration team. The civilian despairs, but Tsukasa calmly says for him, it's no problem. Smiling, he crouches and places his hand on the ground, which begins to glow blue. Then he activates his trap scan ability once more. His logic is simple. Find a place with no traps to locate the long-awaited safe zone. With that, he tells everyone the safe spot is Higashiwa Park and instructs them to follow him. He adds they just need to trust his ability for it to work out. With little choice, the whole group agrees and runs after him towards salvation. After a while, they arrive at the park, and one of the men celebrates their success. Everyone feels relieved since no monsters are around, and the boy's mother says, "Thank you." The woman and Takaru turn to our protagonist and thank him for saving their lives. Suddenly, something feels wrong, and Tsukasa notices strange movement at the park entrance. Seeing this, he flashes a kind of wild grin and sprints off at top speed toward somewhere unknown. He's smiling because now he can see everything clearly and feels like he has the best vision in the world. With this newfound sight, he reasons that if places without traps are safe, then the opposite must be true as well. A place full of traps must be guarding something extremely valuable. Based on this, our protagonist deduces it could be a super powerful hidden item. Without hesitation, he dashes toward the spot he spotted, eager to claim that treasure. He knows that if he can get his hands on that item, his life will change forever. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out from behind him, shamelessly labeling him a weakling. The sound of someone landing hard on the ground grabs our protagonist's attention. The man calls him a fake Srank, and our hero can hardly believe who he's seeing. The man's eyes widen in pure shock as he recognizes the figure before him. It's none other than Asanuma, his old classmate and the biggest bully he's ever known. The enemy Tsukasa is completely frozen, wondering what on earth that guy is doing here. With a suspicious look, our protagonist tries to figure out what the bully is getting at. The blonde man concludes that Tsukasa must have avoided the monsters and ended up here purely by luck. With that, Asanuma confirms there are no monsters here, but something else instead. He shouts that instead of monsters, there are violent people like him, and then charges forward. In our protagonist's eyes, we see the pure reflection of madness on the bully's face. As Asanuma attacks with all his might, Tsukasa barely manages to dodge the blow. The man tries to reason with him, saying it's no time for fights, but the bully doesn't care. He snaps back. The world has already gone to heck anyway. To Asanuma, this is a new world where the strong, like himself, can do whatever they want. With a psychotic grin, He declares he wants to test whether killing people will also raise his level. Confronted with the situation, our protagonist realizes that his old classmate has completely lost control. However, he also notices the guy's movements are unusual, as he skillfully avoids the traps. The bully, realizing he's been spotted, smirks mockingly and says he'll share his secret. Immediately, he reveals a device, explaining that it's the reason for his evasiveness. Our protagonist instantly recognizes it as a trap locator, a rare and extremely expensive item that ordinary hunters can't afford. Kanuma shamelessly admits he looted the device from a shop amidst the chaos. Now equipped with it, he boasts that he has already mapped the area and has nothing to fear. Determined, our protagonist decides to catch him off guard by triggering a forced trap activation. He focuses on a trap directly above Asunuma's head. With a shout, the bully activates the trap, and a massive magic circle appears overhead. Surprised, he looks up just as several metal plates begin to fall toward him. The rain of steel strikes the blonde guy squarely, causing him to scream in pain from the impact. Our protagonist watches the result, seeing his enemy lying on the ground. With a faint smile, he believes he has finally defeated his opponent. He moves closer to the fallen figure to confirm his victory and end the fight once and for all. But suddenly, he notices a sinister smile spreading across his rival's face. The blonde guy rises, mocking the feeble trap as a pink aura envelopes him. He glares at Tsukasa, recalling that the guy mentioned having a trap activation skill. Our protagonist is stunned when he sees a spark on the man's back and wonders what it could be. It turns out to be a defensive item that generates an invisible barrier to block fatal attacks. With a triumphant grin, Asunuma boasts that he had already warned our hero. He reveals the item and admits he looted it from an equipment shop amid the chaos. With a wild grin, he shouts that with the locator and the invisible shield, he can become an elite hunter. Then, the bully lunges forward and lands a powerful punch right in our protagonist's gut. The force of the blow sends the guy crashing to the ground, unable to react to the surprise attack. Anuma calls him trash and mockingly asks if he had the guts to attack him from behind. With a crazed look, he says he always taught him the standard procedure during training, to land a punch to the gut and make the opponent crawl on the floor. He yells for the Hunter Association to watch, declaring that his legend starts now. But Tsukasa recovers and manages to block the next attack with his arm. Anuma complains that because he's a D rank, they only send him to crappy, worthless dungeons. He grows angry, insisting his power isn't limited, and that he'd do great in high-level dungeons. Faced with the situation, our protagonist realizes he's about to get pummeled and needs to act fast. A blue aura appears around his hands as he prepares another ability. He then points at the blonde guy and shouts, activating another trap to end the fight. A spiked ball materializes in the air, and the bully faces it with a confident smile. The trap crashes down, but Anuma blocks it with his sword, screaming that he's going to get stronger. With a manic look, Anuma yells that he's going to acquire even more items in high-level dungeons. Unfazed, our protagonist runs and triggers another trap to try to stop him. The blonde guy dodges everything effortlessly and shouts that he's going to finish everyone who looked down on him. Tsukasa realizes it's useless because the guy is perfectly reading his attacks with the locator. He despairs, knowing that even if an attack lands, it won't do any damage because of the shield. Seeing the enemy's silhouette, he feels cornered and completely out of options to win. Suddenly, a status notification appears, informing him that he has acquired a new ability. He realizes that because he used his technique so many times, his skill proficiency increased without him even noticing. The screen reveals his new skill, trap creation, which allows him to generate new dangers using magical power. Our protagonist feels a glimmer of hope, thinking that maybe, with this, he actually has a chance. Meanwhile, Asunuma calls him trash and grows annoyed at how long he's taking to react. The bully asks what that strange pose is, clearly not understanding what Tsukasa is planning to do. Remembering the bully's words, our protagonist says that first comes the punch to the gut. With a look full of hatred, he shouts that he's going to give the scumbag exactly what he wants. From there, he decides to use his new power to create and activate a trap on himself. With a shout of determination, he forms a trap on his own body using his new skill. Suddenly, a giant wooden log bursts out of the ground and flies at high speed, leaving Asunuma in shock, wondering how a trap could have appeared out of nowhere. The bully yells that his item didn't detect anything, as the log smacks him head-on. The impact sends the blonde guy flying with no chance to defend himself. Our protagonist smiles in celebration because his risky plan has finally worked. He explains that with his new skill, he can create a trap where there was absolutely nothing before. Realizing he can win with this new technique, he decides to activate the trap once more. As Asunuma panics and yells that it's impossible for a weakling like Tsukasa to create traps out of thin air, Tsukasa replies that he's sorry, but he's different. He's an S-rank trap master. With a confident smile, he prepares a sphere of energy and says that's why he can do it. Immediately afterward, our protagonist uses trap creation again. A magic circle forms behind Asanuma, who screams in pure panic at the sight. A giant wash basin suddenly falls from the sky, striking him squarely on the head with tremendous force. Lying on the ground, the bully is utterly bewildered, wondering what on earth a wash basin is. Our protagonist realizes that this still isn't enough, as it represents the limit of his current power. He understands that to create large-scale traps, he needs significantly more magical energy. With that realization, Asanuma begins to laugh, mocking the pitiful wash basin trap. However, Takasa reveals that the goal wasn't to hit him and tells the bully to look at his hands. Confused and clueless, the bully glances down at his hands to see what's there. Suddenly, a red magic circle appears beneath him, activating a trap. Our protagonist explains that the danger had been present in that spot since the very start of the fight. At that moment, the blonde man comprehends that the wash basin was merely bait to lure him into the right position. His eyes widen in sheer panic as he realizes he has fallen directly into the trap. A giant saw blade shoots up from the ground, poised to slice the careless prey caught in the snare. The blade strikes him dead on, and the bully screams in pain from the unexpected assault. With dread etched across his face, he tries to shield himself from the blow, but it's already too late. The saw's impact is so powerful it sends him flying, leaving him defenseless. He lies on the ground, battered and groaning in agony from the injury. In utter desperation, he notices another trap right behind him. This one is a wall of needles that attacks anyone who approaches, and it strikes him squarely. His face twists in pain as he continues to scream while the relentless danger closes in. Moments later, he spots yet another trap and attempts to flee the onslaught. Desperately, he realizes that if this continues, his invisible shield will shatter for good. Pure terror overtakes his expression as he finds himself surrounded by threats on every side. He tries to escape in another direction but soon spots another red magic circle blocking his path. Suddenly, a powerful bolt of lightning strikes him, electrocuting his body with immense force. The electric shock causes his legs to give out, and he collapses to his knees, utterly drained of strength. Injured and battered, he realizes he's reached his limit. One more hit could be fatal. With no way out, he falls right onto yet another red magic circle. At that moment, a chain with a sharp hook shoots toward him at high speed. The unbreakable chain ensnares him completely, immobilizing him and sealing off any chance of resistance. Our protagonist approaches, taunting him by asking if he didn't notice the trap there. With a triumphant smile, he reveals that this place is rigged with a deadly combination of traps. This mechanism was designed to eliminate even highly durable invaders like him. Our protagonist declares that this is the grand finale of his lethal trap combo. Suddenly, a giant crossbow appears in the sky, aiming directly at the terrified bully. In a state of total panic, Asanuma screams and begs for his life, desperate not to be taken out there. Meanwhile, our hero watches as the hunting ballista prepares to finish off its cornered prey. The bolt strikes the blonde guy's invisible shield dead on, causing the barrier to crack under the impact. The force of the attack shatters the shield into 1,000 pieces, and the bully believes it's all over for him. The explosion's force throws him backward, breaking the chains that had barely been holding him. The bolt misses its target and lodges itself in the ground, destroying the items the bully had looted and leaving him completely incapacitated. Asanuma is out cold and doesn't even need a final blow. Tsukasa explains that the shield generator broke because it endured too many deadly traps in quick succession. With that, he walks over and stomps on the trap locator, destroying it once and for all. Our protagonist says that Asanuma's mistake was using up all the item's power on that trap combo. Suddenly, a mysterious light begins shining from a crack in the wall of the place. He looks toward the glow and realizes that's what the traps were protecting. With determination, he steps toward the light, knowing it's what he's been searching for all along. Smiling, he peeks through the crack and celebrates having found exactly what he wanted. Behind the wall, he finds a hidden S-rank treasure chest, which is extremely rare. These items are incredibly hard to find, and very few hunters ever manage to get one. Because of that, they're worth a fortune and can completely change the power of whoever owns them. Without wasting any time, our protagonist opens the chest, and a mysterious blue energy flows out from inside it. The energy surrounds his body, lifting him into the air as he absorbs the item's power. Several status screens appear before him, showing his magic power skyrocketing. He remembers that his weakness was a lack of power, which had prevented him from creating strong traps. But now, with the Archmage's orb, his magic power jumps from 7 to 27 all at once. Wearing a confident, powerful smile, he decides it's time to test his new strength. Immediately, a giant monster with razor-sharp claws appears before him out of nowhere. Surrounding him are several praying mantis-like creatures, their glares threatening. Faced with this, he thinks these foes are perfect for testing his new ability. Raising his hand and shouting with force, he activates his trap creation. 3 magical turrets appear out of thin air, firing a barrage of attacks at the monsters. The turrets unleash a flame attack called Hellfire that burns everything on the field. With a satisfied smile, he realizes the deadly trap worked thanks to the orb's power. Suddenly, 2 mysterious men appear and are taken aback by the scene of destruction. They're shocked to see the monsters' bodies completely charred by fire. One of them wonders if an S-rank hunter is nearby, capable of causing such devastation. Hidden from sight, our protagonist recognizes the men as members of the association's defense squad. Another man rushes up, shouting for them to head to the baseball stadium immediately. He explains that the main force has found the area boss, and everyone must help take it down. Tsukasa overhears the conversation and is surprised to learn the boss is at the stadium. The area boss is the most powerful monster in the location and the top priority for all hunters. If it's defeated, all other monsters vanish, and the area becomes a safe zone. Our protagonist believes this rule must also apply to the city that has turned into a dungeon. Without hesitation, the men sprint toward the stadium for the impending battle. Smiling, he decides an opponent like this is worth seeing and resolves to join them. The scene shifts to the stadium as night falls over the city. There, several hunters fight armored monsters that seem to be the area's guards. One hunter battles a giant creature while another warns not to be distracted by the weaker foes. He cautions that the area boss is about to arrive and they must focus on the main threat. A female hunter remarks that although these monsters are weak for low-rank hunters, they're still fairly tough. Her comment turns to fear as she wonders just how powerful the real boss must be. Suddenly, a strong tremor shakes the stadium, putting everyone on high alert. Part of the structure collapses, and a giant creature emerges from the shadows, terrifying everyone. Its mouth begins to glow with red energy as it prepares a powerful attack. The monster reveals itself as a giant red dragon, glaring at the hunters with intense hatred. Without mercy, the creature unleashes a blast of fire that strikes one of the hunters squarely. The others are stunned by the sheer power of the attack and the overwhelming strength of the boss. They exchange terrified glances, knowing they stand no chance against a monster of this magnitude. One of the leaders shouts for everyone to evacuate immediately, warning that the stadium is collapsing and the boss has arrived. With its massive wings spread wide, the dragon asserts itself as the true ruler of this place. Desperate, the hunters flee for their lives as the leader pushes them to move faster. With a powerful swipe of its tail, the dragon demolishes part of the stadium's bleachers. The force of the blow sends the hunters flying, their screams of pain echoing from the sudden assault. The female hunter rushes desperately to aid her partner, who has been struck and fallen to the ground. Surveying the scene of devastation, she realizes they don't stand a chance against the creature. The monster's glowing red eyes fixate on the humans, as if they were nothing more than insects. The young woman despairs, fully aware that the creature's power is on an entirely different level. The beast then displays all its might and dominance as the undisputed king of the area. At that moment, our protagonist arrives and is shocked to see the boss perched atop a building. Without hesitation, he slams his hand on the ground and shouts for the giant monster to wait for him. With a confident smile, he declares that he will set a deadly trap for the creature right then and there. From that point, he dashes toward the dragon to execute his risky plan. He believes that if he can defeat this creature, the battle in the area will finally be over. Determined, he resolves to end it all using the skills of a true trapmaster. Our protagonist then confronts the dragon face to face, ready for the final showdown. Meanwhile, the other hunters scream for him to retreat, and one of them calls urgently for the medical team. One of the leaders shouts for the artillery squad not to hesitate and to fire with everything they've got. Immediately, several fire arrows are launched simultaneously toward the giant monster. The concentrated attack strikes the dragon squarely on the head with tremendous force and power. With a flicker of hope, the leader cheers and wonders if they manage to hit the beast. To everyone's surprise, the creature remains unfazed and appears perfectly fine. Our protagonist realizes the monster has automatic regeneration, instantly healing all the damage. He understands that to defeat a creature like this, they must land a single fatal blow all at once. Tsukasa thinks Asunuma's invisible guard was already troublesome, but this is far worse. Still, he refuses to give up and firmly believes this opponent isn't invincible. With a plan forming, he calls out for the area boss to come at him with everything it has. The female hunter, surprised by his boldness, decides to join in and shouts as well. She figures that even if she can't help with the attack, she can at least serve as bait for the team. The dragon turns toward her and suddenly fires a heat blast in her direction without warning. In a panic, the young woman closes her eyes, thinking, "This is it for me this time." Suddenly, she opens her eyes and realizes she survived the attack in some mysterious way. Just then, our protagonist appears and catches her in his arms, leaving her stunned. A teleportation magic circle surrounds them, and the hunter asks where they are. Calmly, He explains that he saved her using a space warp trap at the very last moment. That's the hazard warp. A trap that unexpectedly transports the target somewhere else. Usually, this skill is a real nuisance, but if controlled, it can be used for emergency rescues. The girl asks who he is, but our hero replies that there's no time for explanations right now. He then steps back and asks her to use the radio to alert all the squads about the situation. The warning is that a particular hunter will face the boss alone and lure it into the city. The hunter is furious because they had deliberately drawn the creature away to protect the civilians. He responds that the evacuation is already complete and that the city can now become a battlefield. The girl is left speechless as she watches the mysterious man run back into danger. Meanwhile, at the stadium, the dragon continues to wreak havoc with its uncontrollable fury. The creature roars in frustration, unable to land its fire attack on its target. One of the hunters rushes to aid his injured comrade amid the chaos. The leader declares it's pointless, as the creature's regeneration will overwhelm them all. Suddenly, a metal wash basin falls from above and strikes the dragon squarely on the head. This is the wash basin drop, a trap designed to humiliate the target with a comedic blow. Our protagonist faces the beast and shouts for the creature to look at him once and for all. With a taunting grin, he offers to be the creature's opponent anytime. The dragon roars furiously and prepares another devastating fire blast. Seeing this, the other hunters panic, wondering what that man is thinking. Moments later, the boss unleashes its full fire attack at our hero. Tsukasa dashes through the flames, dodging the assault with surprising agility. The hunters watch in shock, questioning if he has a flight skill. However, the leader says, "No, that's not it," because he saw exactly what happened. He noticed that our protagonist used a trampoline trap to launch into the air. Our hero realizes he employed a support trap to evade the heat ray. This is the Rising Spring, a trap that propels prey into the sky, aiding in aerial combat. So, while still airborne, he activates his trap creation once again. From there, a new magical trampoline materializes, and he prepares for his next move. Using the trampoline, he launches himself and lands squarely on the dragon's head. Our protagonist lands flawlessly on the massive beast, which lets out a furious roar. With a determined expression, he declares that he's going to take the monster with him to a special place. Then, he conjures 2 energy spheres and uses them to bind the dragon with a magical rope. He begins guiding the creature toward the grand mechanism designed to bring about its doom. Wearing a confident smile, he soars through the city, dragging the monster toward his final trap. Meanwhile, one of the hunters shouts into the radio that the area boss has left the stadium. He warns that the beast is wreaking havoc in the residential area, causing the hunter beside him to grow anxious. The young woman realizes they're heading toward the city's power substation. Seeing this, Tsukasa thinks the situation has now slipped beyond the other hunter's control. Suddenly, the dragon unleashes another fiery blast, and he screams in shock at the surprise attack. The blast hits him squarely, throwing him back onto the creature's head with full force. Panic spreads across his face as he realizes his plan is beginning to unravel. With no time to lose, he raises his hand and activates his trap creation once more. Our protagonist summons a new danger right on the beast's snout in a desperate bid to save himself. The trap teleports him away, narrowly dodging the monster's attack. Landing perfectly, he celebrates because the teleport worked flawlessly. Facing the beast, he thinks he's just a little distance from the grand mechanism he prepared. Then, placing his hand on the ground, he announces that he's about to serve the main course. With that, Tsukasa screams, unleashing his trap creation one final time with all his strength. Several purple magic circles suddenly appear out of nowhere, encircling the giant creature on every side. The first threat to the beast appears as a sharp hook attached to a chain. Immediately after, unbreakable chains wrap around the dragon, sealing its movements completely. With the monster immobilized, a massive pendulum bearing a giant axe swings down with full force. The iron axe trap strikes the beast head-on, delivering a devastating blow. Right after, a giant saw blade shoots up from the ground, aiming to slice the dragon once and for all. The running saw crashes into the creature with tremendous force, inflicting an enormous amount of damage. Our protagonist explains these are large-scale, special-grade deadly traps. However, he knows that because of the beast's regeneration, this won't be the final blow. Seeing this, he rushes toward the dragon and declares he will unleash even more intense attacks. With a battle cry, he activates his trap creation once again, pouring all his strength into it. Suddenly, a relentless barrage of boulders begins to rain down on the dragon without pause. Immediately after, several fire turrets appear, firing at the creature with full intensity. The monster is struck dead-on by the combined assault of rocks and flames, unable to defend itself. Our protagonist shouts this is a hellish mix of rocks and fire for the beast. He adds these are the strongest traps he can create at the moment. With the dragon cornered, he warns its regeneration won't be able to keep up. With no escape, the monster attempts to flee by flying into the sky to evade the continuous attack. Our hero then tells it to fly into the sky of doom, where the grand mechanism awaits. Wearing a victorious smile, he points upward and says, "The final trap is right there." His hand glowing blue, he shouts with all his might to activate the last danger. Suddenly, the sky darkens, and a mysterious energy begins to gather among the clouds. An intense light appears overhead, targeting the dragon as it flies straight toward its doom. The thunder spear pierces the flying prey with a celestial and devastating strike. The bolt strikes the monster squarely in the chest, dealing massive damage and ending the battle. He explains that this is the thunder spear trap, the most powerful one in the area. Our protagonist reveals that he had known about this danger from the very start. The electric shock causes the giant creature to plummet from the sky at high speed. Yet, despite the powerful strike, the beast's eye continues to glow, indicating the fight isn't over. A red aura envelopes the monster as it recovers and lets out a furious roar. The creature charges with all its might, and Tsukasa uses a trampoline to reposition himself in midair. The dragon assumes the man is merely counterattacking in a last desperate move, but our hero reveals that the spear's power isn't its only special trait. With that, he creates an iron axe pendulum to destroy the transmission tower. His plan is to release all the high-voltage energy in the area simultaneously. The spear lodged in the beast's chest acts like a lightning rod, drawing in all the electricity. This combination generates a massive blow, ideal for taking down the area boss. The creature becomes completely engulfed in purple energy, with no chance to escape. With a shout, our protagonist commands the dragon to burn to ashes with all that power. That proves to be the fatal strike, as the tower's energy reacts with the spear and fries the monster. Watching the explosion, our protagonist thinks he couldn't have pulled this off in a normal dungeon. He realizes the transmission tower was an unexpected trap set for the monster. Wearing a satisfied smile, he lands on the ground, ready for whatever comes next. Walking past the dragon's body, he reflects that if the world has turned into a dungeon, things like this are bound to happen. He concludes that the beast was trapped from the moment it invaded their world. With the mission complete, a status screen appears, and his level skyrockets. He believes he has finally proven that his power is real by clearing the area all on his own. From there, he recalls the harsh 2 years of enduring relentless beatings from Asanuma. He also remembers the days spent studying dungeons and worrying his family. In a flashback, his brother calls and tells him not to push himself so hard because their mother is worried. Even while expressing gratitude for the support, the protagonist insists over the phone that he never gave up. In truth, he has always been excluded by everyone since he was a little kid. With a serious expression, he stares at the horizon, ready for a fresh start. With the boss's death, all the other monsters in the area begin to vanish. Peace returns to the city. As he walks, something strange happens to his foot. Standing before the dragon's body, the protagonist contemplates his next big goal. Without hesitation, he decides to head to the Hunter Association's communications base. That facility's communication systems had been down due to the break-in, but now that the dungeon has been conquered, he believes the communication satellite is operational again. Upon arriving at the communications room, he finds a door secured by an electronic keypad. To solve the problem, he uses his trap creation ability, crafting a utility stun that disables the lock with an electric shock. Apologizing for breaking in, he explains that it's an emergency and decides to enter. Inside, he discovers the association's communications room and several monitors. With a sigh of relief, he sees that thankfully the machines are still functioning. Sitting down, he celebrates that the security has been disabled, and he doesn't need a fingerprint to access the system. From there, he reboots the system that had crashed due to the communication disruption. The computer initiates a field scan to load information about the area. The analysis reveals that the area was A-level and that the dungeon has been completely conquered. Our protagonist then reflects that the high difficulty makes sense because of the monsters. With a keen eye, he notices something strange on the screen that grabs his attention. The system isn't just analyzing his area but all the dungeons throughout the country. From this, he understands that an area basically means a region divided by city. Since the whole world has become a dungeon, he wonders if the system will analyze everything. In theory, it would be possible to divide and analyze all the dungeon areas worldwide. Suddenly, the computer finishes its calculation, and our protagonist wonders if it's already done. However, an error pops up because the data is huge, and he can only see a 100 kilometers radius. Even without the global info, he needs to know what's happening in his region. It turns out his precious mother and younger sister are scattered across different locations. Desperate, he tries to find out the danger level of the area where his family lives. In front of the monitors, he anxiously waits for the system's answer about their location. To his astonishment, all the areas that appear show a conquest difficulty of level A. His eyes widen in pure shock at the information he just received. Our protagonist stands up in panic because everything around him is extremely high difficulty, and he fears only his city is safe while the rest has already been devastated. In a cry of despair, he realizes the signal isn't one of total annihilation. The screen shows that the Sujitatsu area, despite having an A-level difficulty, has already been conquered. Right after, he observes that other areas have also been cleared or are in the process. He understands that in various locations, hunters have defeated bosses and restored communication. With a sigh of relief, our protagonist finally understands the whole situation. From there, it hits him that he's not alone and other heroes are also in the battle. Amid the total chaos, several conquerors are rising to fight the monsters. Our protagonist begins to wonder if a new war of conquest has truly started. He notices that several areas have already been completely cleared of monsters, leading him to conclude that S-rank hunters from other districts are bravely battling. Seeing this, he feels somewhat reassured, though his worry remains. His top priority now is to confirm his family's safety, so he searches for his mother. The screen shows her area has been secured, and he believes he can contact her. In the midst of the destroyed street, the sound of a ringing phone echoes, offering a glimmer of hope. He finally reaches his mother and urgently asks if she's okay. She tells him the hunters handled the situation there, but expresses concern for her son. Our protagonist soothes her, assuring her he's fine, then asks about his sister, Shiori. His mother's expression turns worried as she says the call connected only briefly before dropping due to signal interference, leaving him tense. He yells for her not to leave her location for safety. With his mother safe, he shifts focus to finding his sister Shiori and considers the interference. He recalls she lives in the school dorm in the West Ward and begins his search. The screen shows the West Ward dungeon remains unconquered. Then, a notification appears. Our protagonist wonders what this special message from the local hunters might be. The message states the boss is still active but the crisis has passed and they have control. Suddenly, a man appears on the screen declaring they are no longer pawns of the association. Realizing this isn't an official communication and that someone has hacked the broadcast, our hero listens as the man announces that the people of the West Ward are founding an independent nation. He is stunned. His sister Shiori's district has just declared independence. Suddenly, he spins around, startled by something unusual behind him. Through the door, he sees the silhouette of an intruder and realizes the entry lock has been broken. With no time to waste, our protagonist decides that gathering information is no longer an option and sets a trap instead. He then focuses on escaping to the rooftop of the Hunter Association's communications base. There, a purple magic circle forms on one of the boxes atop the building. This is the Scramble Leap Trap, which teleports him to a random location to facilitate his escape. Out of breath, he manages an emergency getaway, but his magical power is nearly depleted. Although the rare item increased his magic capacity, it only raised his maximum limit. Due to the intense battle against the area boss, his energy is almost completely drained. Gazing at the city below, he thinks it's still not enough, when suddenly his cell phone rings. Seeing this, he picks up the device to see who is calling at that moment. To his surprise, the screen shows an incoming call from his younger sister, Shiori. Without hesitation, he answers and silently prays that she is safe and sound. Her voice is filled with static, and he realizes it's due to signal interference. As expected, the area conquest isn't over yet, and he yells, asking if she's okay. In a weak voice, Shiori says she's safe and tells him to focus on himself. Suddenly, the call drops, leaving our protagonist staring at his phone, deep in thought. He wonders how she can claim to be safe when monsters still roam there. On top of that, the suspicious broadcast from the local hunters makes him even more distrustful. Because of this, he decides he can't afford to worry about his drained magic power right now. With a determined look, he shouts that he's going to confirm Shiori's safety with his own eyes. The scene then shifts to a hunter base that has been converted into a temporary shelter for civilians. One of the men shouts for everyone to load the supplies quickly because the evacuees need assistance. Just then, a man notices that the magic power recovery potions are running low. Our protagonist drinks one of the potions he grabbed to restore his energy. He thinks he'll just borrow a few since if he does his part, it won't be a problem. With a final gulp, he finishes the green liquid to prepare for his journey. Immediately afterward, his magic power is fully restored, and he feels ready for battle. He studies the map and realizes that to reach the West Ward, he must pass through two other areas. According to the base's information, the Cab and Iwatani dungeons have yet to be cleared. Seeing this, he understands that fighting monsters along the way is inevitable. He wonders if he can cross these areas alone with his current stats. If he encounters another area boss, he knows he'll be in serious trouble because his magic might run out. To avoid that, our protagonist knows exactly what he needs to do. With a confident smile, he decides he must level up to increase his magic capacity. So he heads toward the Kawabi Ward, determined to level up no matter what it takes. As he crosses the border, a blue light appears, signaling the start of his dangerous journey. From here, his first mission as a hunter, the dungeon crossing, finally begins. A world that was peaceful just days ago has now transformed into a dungeon filled with perilous areas. Even if one area is cleared, the neighboring one holds another boss, and the battle continues without end. He enters the cab ward, a place where the dungeon remains unconquered and monsters can appear. Suddenly, two men appear and one points, saying he looks like a hunter just like them. They approach and ask if our protagonist has any rare items because they're out of gear. Tsukasa says no, and the man complains that everyone says the same thing, his face filled with disappointment. With that, the man declares there's no other option and activates a claw weapon on his hand, preparing to strike. Our protagonist is stunned as he realizes he's just walked into an ambush set by villain hunters. The bad guy hunter warns him he's about to get hurt and lunges forward with his claws. Because of this, our protagonist narrowly dodges the man's swift, slashing attacks. With a serious expression, he understands these aren't ordinary hunters but outright thugs. Moments later, the two criminals attack together, aiming to capture Tsukasa once and for all. Faced with this, the man decides to use his trap creation to counter the threat. The thug smirks confidently as he watches a purple magic circle form above him. Suddenly, a giant boulder crashes down from the sky, crushing both men under its tremendous weight. The two hunters are pinned to the ground, immobilized by the trap. Our protagonist then wonders if defeating humans might also yield experience points. He thinks the possibility isn't zero and resolves to keep a close watch on violent hunters. However, Tsukasa decides he doesn't need to fight people and will focus solely on the area's monsters. With a confident smile, he opts to test a specific trap for farming experience. The scene shifts to Cab Ward Plaza, where two robot monsters are firing red beams. A woman passing by screams in panic as she narrowly avoids the powerful attack. The robotic creature then turns toward her, appearing confused by something. The monster is puzzled because it hears a whistling sound coming from somewhere. Turns out to be a whistle doll, a trap that lures monsters with its sound. Hidden in a tree, Tsukasa thinks that with this trap, all the monsters will gather together. Soon, for creatures assemble, but he feels that's still not enough to farm experience efficiently. So, he decides to create one more threat to deal with the robots that have appeared. Suddenly, a purple energy bursts from the ground, startling all the monsters present. One creature tries to flee but is immediately zapped by the magical trap embedded in the earth. The shock is so intense the monster becomes completely paralyzed, unable to move. At that moment, a cage materializes out of nowhere, and a lock seals the entrance, trapping the targets inside. The iron cage ensnares the four monsters, who scream in despair at their predicament. Our protagonist then steps forward to begin the next phase of his plan. With a confident smile, he prepares himself and announces that the trap creation is about to start. Suddenly, a mirror of white light appears before one of the monsters confined within the cage. The creature gazes at its own reflection in the mirror, frozen and transfixed. Moments later, the robot begins to disintegrate into dust particles, completely bewildered. This is the copy mirror trap, which reflects and multiplies the monsters trapped inside the cage. Wearing a wicked smile, our protagonist thinks a trap like this is the worst of all. Usually, a danger that multiplies enemies is something no one wants to encounter. But for Tsukasa, trapped inside the cage, it makes no difference. He commands the creatures to multiply. He shouts for the monsters to continue the process until the cage is filled to capacity. His reasoning is simple. The more enemies he defeats, the more experience points he will gain. With a determined expression, he declares he will finish them all at once and grow stronger. Gradually, the cage becomes packed with robots, all screaming in despair as they are squeezed together. Facing the now crowded cage, he readies himself to activate the final mechanism and end the ordeal. Then, our hero unleashes his trap creation one last time with full force. A giant magic circle forms above the cage, glowing with purple energy. The monsters inside tremble in terror, realizing something terrible is about to unfold. A massive boulder falls from the sky, crushing the cage under its tremendous weight. With a satisfied smile, Tsukasa celebrates, knowing his trap-sweeping technique has succeeded. He then names his strategy of multiplying and crushing monsters the Experience Cube. Excited, he boasts about defeating dozens, if not hundreds, of monsters using this plan. At that moment, several status screens appear, and he levels up rapidly. Along with leveling up, he is surprised to discover he has acquired a new ability. The screen reveals his new skill, Trap Domination, which allows control over trap-type monsters. He carefully reads the description to understand how this new power functions. Our protagonist realizes that with this skill, he can turn monsters into his allies. Suddenly, he halts, noticing something moving nearby. It's a survivor from his attack, and he thinks it's the perfect opportunity to test his new ability. With a confident smile, he prepares to use the skill and see if it works. A green magic circle forms in his hand, ready to be activated. With a powerful shout, he unleashes trap domination with all his strength. The green energy strikes the creature, but to his surprise, the power is instantly repelled. Shocked, he realizes the ability simply doesn't work. The monster remains undominated. Tsukasa rereads the description and understands the skill only works on trap-type monsters. Because of this limitation, the technique is useless against normal monsters and won't help in this case. Unable to use the new skill, he creates a finishing sword and defeats the monster for good. Afterward, he thinks that now, having leveled up, he needs to find his sister Shiori and investigate the area. He decides he has delayed what he needs to do for too long and it's time to act. Placing his hand on the ground, which glows with an intense blue aura, he activates his scan to search for existing traps in the area. Using his special vision, he analyzes the area to identify where the dangers are and what types they are. The scan reveals a museum with several traps concentrated in one place. Looking deeper, he's shocked to discover an underground passage stretching several kilometers. His eyes sparkle in disbelief that such a structure exists beneath the ground. Smiling, our protagonist gets up, seeming to understand what this means. Faced with the situation, he realizes he has no choice but to go to that museum. Without wasting time, he starts walking toward his next big objective. He then enters a dark, dense forest to reach his destination faster. Suddenly, Tsukasa stops and turns around, startled by something he sees. He's surprised to find a huge lake right in the middle of the forest. Because of the lake, he deduces the museum must be very close. Moments later, he finds the building and celebrates having located the place. He believes the underground passage lies beneath the museum, and his intuition proves correct. Wasting no time, he enters the museum, and the door closes behind him with a thud. According to his scan, the interior is completely filled with traps. Because of this, he walks very carefully to avoid accidentally triggering any dangers. Suddenly, he notices a chest moving and yells that the creature has been way too obvious all along. So, he decides to use his new trap domination ability on the monster. Green energy hits the chest, which is surprised and frozen by the skill's power. Our protagonist is happy the technique worked and that he now has a new ally. As he suspected, it's a mimic, a monster disguised as a treasure chest. This creature pretends to be a chest to ambush hunters, making its very existence a trap. Thanks to his scan, he was able to see the creature clearly and understands what that means. With a victorious smile, our protagonist celebrates the overwhelming success of the domination. From that moment on, the mimic becomes his ally, and a green emblem appears to seal their pact. Suddenly, the mimic leaps onto him, catching him off guard. Shocked by the sudden attack, he panics, fearing the creature is attacking him and that his skill has failed. The impact knocks him to the ground, and he thinks he let his guard down, believing it's all over for him. He hits the floor hard and screams in pain from the unexpected fall. Lying there, he complains about the pain but then realizes the monster is simply sitting on his lap. The creature makes an adorable face, like a little puppy, and lets out a cute sound. Moments later, the little thing clings to his leg, leaving him utterly confused. He then realizes the creature seems strangely attached to him. The little monster continues making happy, cute noises as if pleased to have a new owner. Though the whole situation makes him a bit uncomfortable, he tries not to dwell on it. Despite how bizarre it is, he confirms that the domination worked and the monster truly became his ally. With the skill confirmed, he opens a trapdoor and prepares to enter the underground passage. He descends the stairs with his new companion following closely behind, ready for the next phase. He notices such a large passage didn't exist before and must have been created when the district became a dungeon. From this, he deduces that if a space was created, it must serve a purpose. Likely a secret shortcut. He believes this passage is the best way to avoid fighting at every turn. With a serious expression, he hopes his theory about the shortcut is correct. Yet, he knows that in exchange for speed, this path likely conceals enormous dangers. Looking down at his new companion, he decides he can no longer just call him Mimic. From that moment on, with a smile on his face, he names the little creature Mimi. The tiny monster seems to really like the name and looks up at him with big, shining eyes. Suddenly, Mimi jumps onto him, and our hero wonders why it's so happy. He then warns his new companion to get ready, because the journey ahead will be dangerous. The little creature makes a confident sound, showing it's more than prepared for the fight. Our protagonist realizes he'll have help, and with that thought, he feels much safer moving forward. With determination, he approaches the giant door and opens it to see what lies beyond. As he cracks it open, he comes face to face with a dark silhouette surrounded by a sinister purple energy. The figure reveals itself to be a giant knight clad in imposing and frightening armor. A torch on the wall lights the area, revealing a few more details of the place. Before him, our protagonist notices a knight statue very similar to the monster. He scans the room and sees that there's only the statue and an exit door at the far end. With that, he begins to walk slowly, with Mimi following closely behind. He carefully approaches the knight statue to see what will happen next. With a focused expression, he already expects something strange to occur at any moment. Suddenly, the stone statue comes to life and raises its sword, ready to strike with all its might. Without hesitation, the man activates one of his abilities, creating a purple aura in his hand. Moments later, a stone wall appears, successfully blocking the monster's blow. The creature remains unfazed and prepares to launch another powerful attack. But the magical wall cannot withstand the force and begins to crack under the blade's impact. Tsukasa then confirms that, just as he suspected, this is a trap-type monster. He had already known there was a high-level danger in the room from his previous scan. The problem was that his domination ability didn't work on statues, and he needed the creature to transform. Because of this, he deliberately approached, but something unexpected caught him by surprise. The creature moved incredibly fast and appeared right behind him, ready to strike again. Faced with this, our protagonist created an iron wall to defend himself from the surprise attack. He was shocked because the creature was far too strong, and his iron wall shattered into pieces. With that, the creature charged at high speed toward him. He barely managed to dodge, but realized the monster was incredibly fast. The knight moved in random trajectories, leaving him very confused by its tactics. Through these erratic movements, he realized the monster was aiming for something. His eyes widened as he understood the creature's target was his blind spot. So, at the last second, he created a diamond shield to block the attack from behind. This confirmed that the creature was definitely aiming for his back. But since it was a trap monster, he knew he didn't have to fight it head-on to win. With a plan in mind, he prepared to use his trap domination on the creature. The green energy hit the knight dead-on, paralyzing him with the ability's power. The skill's energy completely enveloped it, and our hero believed the fight was finally over. However, he was shocked to realize that although it hit, the technique wasn't working. With a look of panic, he wondered why his domination had been completely nullified. From there, he understood that his skill level was still too low for high-level monsters. Despite the failure, he didn't give up and decided he would keep trying until it worked. Believing that if he hit the creature several times, the skill should activate, he tried to use trap domination once more with all his strength. But he grew frustrated because the monster was far too fast, and the first hit had been just luck. He realizes he needs to predict the creature's trajectory to successfully land his technique. Our protagonist focuses, determined that there must be a way to win. With a new idea, he places his hand on the ground to create a trap and lure the creature in. Using this trap, he sets the stage for his plan. The knight charges to attack, but our hero dodges at the last moment. Suddenly, the creature halts, completely drenched in water. His grand trap was a basin of water that soaks the knight without causing any harm. The monster stands still, utterly confused by what just happened. With the floor soaked, the knight attacks again in a fury, and the hero narrowly dodges. Our protagonist prepares himself, knowing his real plan is about to begin. Smiling, he realizes the joke trap has made the monster furious. The knight charges once more, but this time it doesn't seem as fast as before. Because it's all wet, its movements leave water trails on the floor. This allows our protagonist to finally track the creature's movements. He understands that by following the watermarks, he can read the monster's behavior pattern. Aiming where the creature will be, he uses his trap domination again. The green energy strikes the knight dead on, who tries to resist the ability's power. The monster is hit but appears unfazed and continues advancing with its sword. Yet Tsukasa doesn't give up and keeps using his domination repeatedly to stack the effects. He believes that if he keeps hitting the creature, the technique's effects will accumulate. With one last battle cry, he launches another powerful domination at the monster. Our hero is confident that sooner or later, the ability will finally take effect. With a determined look, he shouts that he's going to make that high-level creature his ally. Meanwhile, Mimi hides behind a pillar, watching the battle from a distance. The knight stops moving, and the hero is out of breath after using his skill so much. With his mana bar almost empty, he realizes he has just enough energy for one last shot. Facing the situation, he wonders if he can finish the fight with this final chance. The creature gives him no time to think and charges again, attacking with all its might. Our protagonist then decides to bet everything on that desperate last shot. He yells with all his strength, hoping the ability will finally work for good. Using the energy he has left, he unleashes his trap domination. The knight charges for the final blow while our hero readies his counterattack. With a cry of determination, he fires the ability that will decide the battle's outcome. A huge explosion of green energy hits the monster dead center with full force. Thick smoke covers the entire battlefield, making it impossible to see anything. Out of breath, our protagonist tries to see the result of his risky plan. He notices the knight's movements have stopped and wonders if the technique succeeded. Moments later, the monster's killer aura begins to fade rapidly. With a relieved smile, he celebrates because his subjugation was a total success. Then, the creature drives its sword into the ground with a dull, imposing thud. To his surprise, the knight kneels and apologizes to her new master. Shocked that the creature can speak, our protagonist asks who she really is to have such an ability. To his astonishment, the knight removes her helmet, revealing who is underneath. Beneath the heavy armor stands a beautiful elf with long white hair. The warrior reveals herself completely, showing an imposing and powerful presence. Faced with the revelation, our protagonist is left speechless by what he just discovered. The elf says she is no one and asks him to give her a name and accept her as his servant. Slightly awkward, the guy agrees, thinking she needs a fitting name. With a smile, he decides that from now on, her name will be Jean. The elf is touched and repeats the name John with pure joy shining on her face. With great honor, she accepts the name and asks to be called that from now on. Suddenly, the protagonist is startled by a strange noise coming from nowhere. The sound turns out to be little Mimi, who screams out of pure jealousy at the scene. The little monster charges full force at John, who faces her with complete calm. Calmly, the elf holds Mimi and says that he is the senior here, and she must respect his position. The protagonist is confused by the scene and realizes that even monsters have a hierarchy. Seeing this, it dawns on him that now is no time for distractions. They need to hurry. But Giant stops him from moving forward and asks her new master to wait a moment. The elf explains that by defeating her, the next event has been triggered and the boss battle is about to begin. In a panic, the hero asks what she means, and the warrior says the boss is about to awaken. With a serious look, she reveals that she is the guardian of this dungeon and her role is to protect it. Therefore, her transformation into a monster and the fight against him served as a signal for the boss. The elf adds that the battle is inevitable and it's impossible to leave without defeating the monster. The protagonist despairs, realizing he thought he had chosen the easiest path to escape. Without hesitation, he decides to give up on the passage and return to the surface. However, John warns with a serious expression that this won't work at all. She explains that the door can no longer be moved by human strength because retreat is impossible. Then, the warrior points forward and says the only way is to the boss's room. At that, the hero replies that fighting is impossible because he's out of magic power. Suddenly, Mimi pokes him, and he turns to see what his little ally wants. Mimi then opens its mouth and begins to spit something out for its master. Our protagonist is surprised when the little monster hands him a magic potion. To his amazement, it's a magic power recovery potion. Something he desperately needed. Smiling, he realizes that Mimi has a storage ability and can hold items. Taking the potion, he feels fully prepared for the next battle. Jean then asks if he can use advanced water magic, stressing that without it, their efforts would be pointless. She explains that the area boss is like the embodiment of flames and requires a concentrated water attack. Our protagonist admits that water magic is difficult and that the trap he used on her was the extent of his skill. He begins to think of a strategy, but suddenly Mimi catches his attention. The little monster makes a questioning face, and our hero seems to have a new idea. He then asks John if the door can't be opened by humans, and she confirms this with a confident smile. With a new plan forming, he asks if monsters like her and Mimi could open the door for them to escape. The elf replies that if it's monsters, retreat would probably be possible. Suddenly, a strong tremor shakes the place, putting the two on high alert. John explains that the dungeon's master has lost patience and is attacking with full force. Moments later, the large door at the end of the room is engulfed in flames and begins to break apart. The elf yells for her master to use defensive magic because the flames are advancing. With no time to waste, our protagonist creates a purple barrier to shield himself from the assault. Then, a massive explosion of fire destroys the door and engulfs the entire room. Flames surround them on all sides, and our hero realizes the grave danger they face. Using his magic shield, he protects his allies from the fire that reduces everything to ashes. Watching the scene, he is surprised to see the flames take the shape of a giant phoenix soaring in the air. He is shocked by the immense power and notices the entire room beginning to crumble. In response, our protagonist summons a blue energy shield to protect himself from the falling debris. The ceiling continues to collapse, but the protective barrier holds firm against the impact. Once the dust settles, they realize they are standing atop a large magic circle. With a serious expression, Tsukasa seems to grasp what is about to unfold. Suddenly, a giant creature composed entirely of fire appears, and Jean calls it the boss. This is the monster known as the incarnation of fire and the true ruler of the area. At that moment, our protagonist understands that the whole place is starting to collapse. Knowing he can't just stand still, he decides he must move before everything comes down. Looking at Mimi, he asks a favor, requesting that his ally act alone. He then whispers to the little monster to return the way they came and escape. John screams out desperately because the area boss is preparing a new attack. The fiery creature roars in rage and charges at them with full force, leaving no room for defense. Despite the danger, our protagonist faces the monster with a determined expression. He pushes Mimi toward the door, urging the little monster to escape in time. Now alone, the man and the elf prepare to confront the incarnation of fire. Glancing back, our hero shouts anxiously, asking about his small companion. To his relief, he sees Mimi running safely toward the exit. His plan relies on the fact that, as a human, the door would lock and prevent him from escaping, but the elf explains that allied monsters like Mimi can open the door and leave. With this hope, our protagonist shouts that everything now depends on his little monster. Facing the boss, he activates his trap creation to truly begin the battle. The trap he creates is a mysterious wormhole capable of spitting out objects. The fire boss wastes no time and launches a full-scale attack against them. At that moment, the guy shouts to Jean that a second wave of attacks is coming. The creature then fires several fireballs from its mouth at high speed. To protect him, the elf steps forward and uses her sword to slice through the flames. With a swift move, the warrior successfully defends her master from the creature's assault. Smiling, our protagonist thanks John for her timely help. He then says he no longer needs assistance dodging and that he will act as bait. The plan is for John to strike the monster's left leg to immobilize it. The elf accepts the order, declaring she will complete the mission even if it costs her life. He thinks that now the rest of the plan depends on little Mimi getting the job done. The first order was to exit the museum the same way they entered. Immediately after, the creature speeds through the dark forest. Its final destination is the large lake on the other side of the woods. With a determined look, the little monster prepares to carry out its crucial mission. Arriving at the lake's edge, Mimi readies herself to execute her master's command. With a powerful leap, the creature throws itself into the water to complete the final part of the plan. Meanwhile, the fire boss roars in fury and readies another attack. The creature strikes, and our protagonist conjures a diamond shield to defend himself. Struggling to withstand the blow, he screams in desperation, calling for Jane. The elf then shouts that she's found an opening and that now is the time to carry out the order. Charging forward, she slashes the creature's leg with her sharp sword. The boss roars in pain from the surprise strike delivered by the warrior. Seizing the opportunity, our hero uses his wormhole to trap the monster. With that, the beast's movements are sealed, and it becomes stuck under the trap. He believes that now everything depends on Mimi and the special item it is carrying. Deep beneath the lake, Mimi opens its mouth, revealing what it had been holding all along. The other wormhole that will connect to the first one he created. Once placed at the bottom of the lake, the trap links directly to the exit in the dungeon. Confronted with this situation, the fire boss finds itself completely trapped, with nowhere to escape. As the plan unfolds, the fire creature feels a drop of water fall on its head. The monster then stares at the wormhole, bewildered and unsure of what is happening. Watching the scene, our protagonist allows himself a slight smile, knowing his plan has worked perfectly. The boss is shocked to realize that a massive amount of water is about to pour down. Suddenly, the lake's water crashes down with tremendous force, striking the creature. The monster tries to shield itself, but the power of the water begins to extinguish its flames. Gradually, the entire area starts flooding from the waterfall that has formed. Tsukasa shouts for John to get behind him to avoid being swept away by the current. With no time to lose, John places his hand on the ground and activates his trap creation again. A giant wall then rises before them, blocking the flow of water. This prison wall is a trap designed to stop anything coming from outside. With the situation now under control, he celebrates, knowing his water-based torture has been a complete success. He explains that defeating the boss would have required an army of water mages. Therefore, the only option was to use the lake outside and send Mimi there. By placing the wormhole in the lake, he managed to connect the 2 points and channel the water inside. The fire boss screams in agony as the water relentlessly douses its flames. The creature struggles to resist, but its fiery body begins to disintegrate under the assault of the water. As the flames are extinguished, a glowing core becomes visible in the giant monster's chest. Jane shouts that the enemy's core has appeared and that they need to destroy it immediately. At that, our protagonist prepares to use his trap creation. With a shout, he summons a finishing sword from a magic circle. The sword flies at high speed, delivering the final blow to the weakened creature. The strike hits the core dead center, and the boss's body begins to turn to stone. Moments later, the creature collapses, and the waterfall finally ceases its flow. With the enemy defeated, the wormhole in the ceiling slowly starts to close. On the other side, Mimi seals the portal in the lake using her special ability. With that, our protagonist and Jen can finally relax a little. Suddenly, little Mimi emerges from a puddle of water and makes a cute celebratory sound. Smiling, they celebrate the complete success of subjugating the area boss. He then thanks his little ally, but something strange happens to his hand. Suddenly, Mimi squeals with joy, and our protagonist kneels down, surprised by an object. A dagger, shrouded in magical power, is embedded right in the stone body of the boss. John explains that it is the area's hidden item and asks him to accept it. Our protagonist is thoughtful, having never heard of an item like that before. He wonders if it might be an ultra-rare treasure that's difficult to obtain. The elf reveals that the item was at the bottom of the lake and came through the portal with the water. With a victorious smile, the protagonist holds his new and powerful reward in his hands. He reflects that he never would have imagined such an item lying at the bottom of that lake. The screen reveals the weapon's name as Mystic Lightblade, though its effects remain unknown. He decides he will discover the weapon's powers by using it in combat. Suddenly, a strong tremor shakes the area, and the boss's body begins to tremble violently. Our protagonist is startled by the noise, but John tells him to stay calm. She explains that the tremor accompanies the subjugation, and as the passage shifts, it opens a path to the next area, which serves as the escape route. The scene changes to the border between the Iwatani and Kawab wards in the city. Our protagonist climbs out of a manhole and realizes he is right on the boundary line. He reflects that despite everything, he has managed to get this far, when suddenly a voice calls out to him. A man asks what he's doing there, and the protagonist turns around, startled by the unexpected presence. Without hesitation, he pushes Jan back into the manhole and tells her to hide. Then, he faces the group of men approaching him. One of the hunters scolds him for wandering alone during an emergency. Our protagonist recognizes the uniforms as belonging to the Hunter Association's rescue squad. At that moment, one of the group's leaders orders the others to clear a path for them to pass. The man then looks at him and asks if he is the S-rank hunter Ninomiya. Smiling, the protagonist reveals the young man's profile and says his reputation has already spread. He explains that the rumor of our protagonist defeating an area boss single-handedly has circulated widely. The man recalls the battle against the dragon and admits it was quite a spectacle. Consequently, he invites him to join their squad and work together to persuade him. The man says he can use his authority to register him officially as a hunter. Our protagonist is speechless. This is the recruitment opportunity he has always dreamed of. Faced with the offer, he clenches his fist tightly, needing to make a decision. To everyone's surprise, he bows and firmly declines the man's offer. The squad leader is shocked and asks if he intends to continue acting as an independent hunter. Without another word, the protagonist remains bowed, showing respect and gratitude for the chance. Understanding this, the man acknowledges that he must have his reasons and recognizes it was a valuable opportunity to gain fighting power. The leader says that if he wants to act alone, that's fine, but he should be careful on the way. Then he warns him, mentioning that illegal hunters have been committing crimes in the Iwatani ward. Our protagonist recalls the thugs he encountered and grows uneasy at the man's tone. He thinks that if the association is issuing warnings about them, they must be even more dangerous, so he needs to stay alert. After that, he helps John out of the manhole and assures him that everything is fine now. The elf asks if he's sure about not joining them while the guy pulls Mimi out of the hole. He confirms, saying he no longer needs the registration because with the world turning into a dungeon, it doesn't matter. Besides, he feels he can't trust anyone else. Not even the Hunter Association. With a smile, he reveals that he already has his own teammates. Looking at his allies, he adds that they are the most reliable companions he could ask for. At that, John and Mimi smile happily at their new master. Now, in the Iwatani ward, our protagonist decides to start with a trap scan. He places his hand on the ground to assess the area's characteristics and find the best path. The scan displays a map of the location, and he wonders what exactly is in this area. Suddenly, a giant purple spot appears on the screen, making him very suspicious. Our protagonist is shocked because he's never seen anything like that in his scans before. He then realizes this could be something very dangerous ahead. Following the location, they arrive at the outskirts of the Iwatani ward. The place his scan showed is an amusement park, and the mysterious mark bothers him a lot. He decides to investigate the area just in case. As he walks, little Mimi begins to behave very strangely. Our protagonist stops, sensing that something is very wrong nearby. Suddenly, a massive concrete box falls from the sky right in front of them, seemingly out of nowhere. The protagonist wonders if this concrete box is the mysterious mark he had seen earlier. He then approaches a metal plaque positioned next to the object. The plaque reads, "Here sleeps the destroyer that crushes any rock no one should touch." He's puzzled by the term, destroyer, and wonders if it refers to some large mechanism. John warns him that the device could be a catastrophe-class trap. She explains that it represents a large-scale danger, very different from ordinary traps and extremely rare. He thinks he's never heard of such a thing, not even in the Hunter Association's records. Feeling uneasy about accidentally triggering the trap, he decides that, as curious as he is, it's better for them to leave. The group then abandons the park and enters a forest to continue their journey. The protagonist believes this is the best shortcut, though it remains a risky choice. Suddenly, he halts because he hears something unusual up ahead. He spots a group of hunters engaged in battle with a monster, and one of them shouts not to retreat. He notices that despite their strength, the hunters seem inexperienced. With a powerful strike, the creature sends the hunters flying, leaving them no chance to defend themselves. Watching the scene, the protagonist realizes that if he doesn't intervene, it's only a matter of time before everyone there is wiped out. Without hesitation, he runs toward the fight to help the hunters. Suddenly, he freezes as something completely unexpected occurs. A flash of golden light appears out of nowhere and strikes the creature with incredible speed. Moments later, a mysterious female hunter materializes in midair and attacks the monster with her sword. With a single powerful blow, she strikes the ground, unleashing a massive shockwave. Tsukasa is utterly speechless, having never expected anyone else to intervene in the fight. At that moment, John and Mimi approach, and the elf asks with concern if her master is all right. Before them, the giant creature that had been attacking the hunters lies completely defeated in a single strike. The protagonist remains stunned, unable to comprehend what just occurred. The mysterious female hunter then lands gracefully on the ground after her devastating attack. The other hunters stand dumbfounded, amazed that the monster was taken down in the blink of an eye. The warrior turns to them and apologizes for suddenly interrupting their battle. Smiling, she introduces herself as Asina Yui, an S-rank hunter from the association. The young woman explains that she had been on a mission to investigate the area boss and ended up discovering them, who were hiding. The protagonist is impressed by her power, thinking her strike was incredible. Yui then says she was looking for companions and invites them to join her. The group of hunters shows interest in the offer, but she mentions a small condition. With a serious expression, the warrior warns that the mission doesn't end with just finding the boss. Combat is inevitable. Upon hearing this, the hunters smile slightly, seemingly unfazed by the danger. The group's leader immediately agrees, stating they are A-rank hunters and capable of handling it. Excited by the new alliance, they celebrate and prepare to pursue the big boss. With a gentle smile, Asahina Yui tells everyone to move out, appearing pleased to have new allies. Yet in her thoughts, she calls them naive, knowing they won't last in the fight. John then asks what they should do, and the protagonist advises not to get involved. With a determined look, he resolves to ignore the group and focus on crossing the forest. After some time, they reach a river, and the protagonist is taken aback by the vastness of the area. Although the path is long, he insists they just need to keep moving forward to reach their destination. Suddenly, Tsukasa stops walking, looking confused as he notices something unusual in the area. With a hand on his head, he complains that ever since entering this place, only strange things have been happening. Frustrated, he shouts for whoever is hiding nearby to come out immediately. When silence follows, our protagonist decides to force the intruder to reveal themselves. A purple aura appears around his hand as he prepares to use his trap creation. With a powerful shout, he warns that he will use his power if the intruder continues to hide. Suddenly, a terrified man emerges from behind the rocks, pleading not to be taken away. The man desperately claims he's just an ordinary civilian who happened to be passing through. He then drops to his knees, begging not to be turned into monster food. Our protagonist, puzzled by this, wonders what he's talking about. Just then, Mimi appears out of nowhere, frightening the poor man even more. At that moment, Tsukasa realizes that with his strange companions, it's no wonder the man is scared. He apologizes for the misunderstanding and explains that he is an independent hunter. The man is shocked by this revelation and asks if he's really a hunter. When confirmed, the man clings to his leg, begging desperately for help. He explains that he got lost and asks our protagonist to take him somewhere safe. Our hero considers the problem, knowing he's in a big hurry. Despite the urgency, he realizes monsters appear here and it would be wrong to just leave the man behind. Remembering the group of hunters nearby, he thinks about asking them to protect the man. With a smile, he says he'll find an association squad to keep him safe. The man celebrates desperately, relieved that he's saved and will finally be able to return home safely. Suddenly, Mimi startles him once again, causing the man to scream in pure panic at the creature. Tsukasa scolds his companion and apologizes to the man for the little monster's behavior. However, he believes that wandering around with creatures like these is dangerous and likely to attract the association's attention. Therefore, he asks Jean to stay there with Mimi, saying he can guide the man alone. The elf agrees to the order, and our protagonist tells the man to follow him. The two then begin walking toward the forest to find the hunter squad. The man remarks that it's a relief to have found a hunter and that he feels safe now, but our protagonist warns him not to let his guard down, as a monster could attack at any moment. Hearing this, the man gives a sinister smile and prepares to act. With a crazed look, he declares the hunter naive and says it's not just monsters he should fear. Suddenly, he attacks our hero from behind, a yellow energy glowing in his hand as he attempts to take him down. But our protagonist is ready and sets a trap to defend against the surprise attack. The thug is stunned, not expecting such a quick reaction. The counterattack trap strikes the attacker's face directly with a powerful punch. The impact sends the man flying, and our hero says he anticipated this all along. He adds that he had already been warned about the illegal and malicious hunters operating in this area. Lying on the ground, the man smirks wickedly and confirms he is one of those thug hunters. Still, he doesn't give up and rises to demonstrate one of his special abilities. With a triumphant smile, he reveals a blue sword and asks if our hero noticed he stole it. Our protagonist is shocked, recognizing the weapon immediately. He recalls it as the mystic light blade given to him by the boss in another area. The thief then mocks him, saying he was very careless to let that happen. He explains that he activated his skill the instant he was hit to steal the opponent's rarest item. His ability, called Rarity Steal, is used to seize the enemy's strongest equipment. With a wicked grin, the thug boasts that this is his great special power. Then, he charges forward with full force, shouting that with an OP skill like that, he's simply unbeatable. Suddenly, a blue magic circle appears beneath him, trapping him with sharp vines. The thug is shocked and can't understand how a trap appeared out of nowhere. The vines bind him tightly and lift him into the air, leaving him completely immobilized. This is the binding vine trap, designed to mercilessly capture forest trespassers. Our protagonist then says he didn't do anything, that the danger was already there. With a slight smile, he reveals he deliberately threw the thug near the containment trap. He explains that with his scan ability, he can detect hazards in advance. Holding his sword, he warns that the thug isn't the only one here with OP abilities. Then, he asks what he should do next since he hasn't used the item he just recovered. With the blade pressed to the man's neck, he prepares to end the fight once and for all. Our protagonist invites him to be a test subject for the new weapon's power. In a panic, the attacker begs not to be killed and claims he'll reveal a big secret. He says he knows the location of a hidden, ultra-rare item in this very area. Our hero is surprised by this and wonders if it's true. With a suspicious look, he questions how the man could possibly know such a thing. The man insists it's true and pleads to be released. Still suspicious, our protagonist asks if he really knows the location. Tsukasa thinks back, recalling that he used his scan upon entering but found no likely spots. He reflects that if the item were in a place full of traps, it would be much easier to find. Usually, rare items are guarded by many dangers, and his skill is perfectly suited for that. However, sometimes these treasures lie in remote locations, where his abilities offer little help. From this, he deduces that this time the treasure must be in one of those undetectable areas. Suddenly, John appears, asking with concern if her master is all right, and he calls her over. The elf explains she heard the sounds of battle and came running with Mimi to assist in the fight. The protagonist appreciates their concern and apologizes for causing alarm. He then explains to the elf that the man he just captured is an illegal hunter. Understanding the situation, John asks her master to let her deliver the final blow. The warrior readies her sword, casting a threatening glance at the thug. The man's eyes widen in pure terror as he realizes his fate is sealed. Desperate, he shouts for the elf to wait and begs them to listen because he has something important to say. Frantically, he insists he saw a clue to the hidden item and swears he's telling the truth. At this, the protagonist and John exchange highly suspicious looks. Trying to save himself, the man begins to explain that he was searching for a hunter to ambush. He says that for that, he ventured deep into an isolated canyon. Suddenly, the cliff before him started shaking and moving oddly. From there, a giant stone monster with red eyes appeared right in front of him. Growing impatient, Tsukasa asks what that has to do with the hidden item. The man, annoyed, calls him stupid and says the answer is obvious. A monster that's strong and tough must surely be guarding the treasure. The protagonist finds the idea somewhat too simplistic but considers it might be possible. John then warns her master that it's dangerous to trust the man, though not impossible. She explains that sometimes, to deceive hunters, items are hidden in simple places. Because of what John said, our hero decides that maybe it's worth trusting him. Reluctantly, he draws his magic blade and prepares to head to the location. He announces that they're going to retrieve the item because it might help them find Shiori. Our protagonist tells the thug to guide them to the stone monster without removing the vines. Suddenly, his eyes widen as he notices a strange glow deep within the forest. Moments later, the thug goes on high alert at the sound of a blade slicing through the air. The golden glow speeds toward them, signaling a powerful attack. He spins around in shock, not expecting someone to appear out of nowhere. The mysterious female hunter cuts the vines, and our protagonist jumps back to protect himself. The strike breaks the trap, and the thug finally breaks free from the vines. John and Mimi rush over worriedly, but Tsukasa insists he's fine. The warrior then shouts for him to stop, saying he's gone too far with his evil deeds. She claims to have heard about illegal hunters and is certain he's one of them. Our protagonist is stunned to realize she's the S-rank hunter who was searching for the boss. Meanwhile, John notices that other hunters from her group have also appeared. The men surround the elf and little Mimi, preparing to attack them both at any moment. One of them yells that he's going to defeat the despicable illegal hunter and wipe them out. Then he charges, attacking the little monster alongside the other creatures nearby. Our protagonist yells for John to be careful, insisting those men have completely misunderstood the situation. The female hunter attacks, and the thug creates a shield trap to defend against the blow. The sudden shield is a weak wooden trap that materializes out of nowhere to block attacks. With great effort, he manages to hold back the hunter's strength, grinding his teeth in pain. John shouts, worried about his master, but the hunter remains unfazed by the scene. The young woman insists that the fact he commands evil creatures proves he is evil. He shouts for her not to jump to conclusions, insisting she's fighting the wrong person. Meanwhile, the thug celebrates his luck and decides it's time to get out of there. John then asks if her master wants her to annihilate all those hunters. The female hunter is stunned and speechless at what the elf just said to them. At that, our protagonist forbids her and orders her to grab Mimi and get out of there immediately. Jan understands the order and says she will retreat from the location right away to protect them. She then dodges the hunter's attacks with surprising agility. The men are shocked by her speed and shout that they can't catch her. The female hunter watches the scene with a serious, focused expression, considering what to do next. With a sword strike, the hunter breaks the shield and prepares for the next attack. The other hunters watch from a distance as she charges toward our protagonist. The young woman then yells not to worry about the monsters and to surround the evil leader. Tsukasa faces the hunter with a serious look, showing no sign of intimidation. He praises her for letting her companions escape and staying behind to fight. Then the warrior says it's now 4 against 1, and she has nowhere to run. Our protagonist tells her not to be mistaken. He didn't stay behind out of desperation. The female hunter looks confused, not understanding what he means. With a confident smile, he says that 1 against many is perfect for testing his new weapon. With a swift movement, he prepares to use the mystic light blade in battle. He then yells for the sword to dance wildly toward the unknown trap. The screen reveals the weapon is a rare item with invisible power and unknown effects. With a determined look, he thinks the power of that weapon is still completely unknown. He declares that now is the moment to prove its true value in battle. The other hunters mock him, questioning what he can possibly do with such a short sword. Their leader shouts not to underestimate A-rank hunters and charges forward with full force. The female hunter calls out for them to hold back, warning that reckless attacks are dangerous. Unfazed, the protagonist activates his trap creation, surrounded by a purple aura. Magic circles then appear on the hunter's weapons, leaving them stunned. Smiling, he says, "This will be a test cut," and prepares to strike. The man charges, shouting for his mystic light blade to unleash its full power. The pinball panic trap causes their weapons to ricochet wildly, striking their own wielders. The female hunter is shocked, realizing he summons traps from thin air and is no ordinary opponent. One hunter screams in pain from the unexpected blow. Lying on the ground, the others complain of a tingling sensation spreading through their bodies. One looks down at his arm and notices something seriously wrong. Panicking, he shouts that it's poison, that he's been hit by a poison attack. The protagonist's blade glows with a purple aura, revealing its true power. He then understands that the weapon's ability is to inflict negative status effects on those it cuts. But since it's an ultra-rare item, he suspects the effect is more than just that. Suddenly, Tsukasa goes on high alert as the female hunter charges at him with everything she has. She attacks with her golden sword, and the protagonist defends with his blade. She shouts that his rampage ends here, and he won't harm anyone else on her watch. With a precise strike, the young woman deflects the short sword he throws at her. The protagonist is surprised that his weapon was so easily knocked away. Without hesitation, he activates his trap creation again for a new strategy. The blade then begins to move oddly, controlled by magical strings. The weapon glows with an intense blue aura as it prepares for its next move. The puppet's trap causes the weapon to strike her unexpectedly in the back. She despairs, realizing she missed the attack and has been hit by poison. However, this time it's not poison but an ice attack that freezes her shoulder. Smiling, Tsukasa understands that the blade's color changes the attack's effect. The dagger can freely switch attack attributes like poison or freeze. Despite the negative effects, the female hunter readies herself to continue the fight. She shouts that the freeze won't stop her, and that she's about to unleash a serious technique. Closing her eyes, she focuses to prepare her next powerful attack. With her hands gripping her sword, She releases a strong golden aura to fuel her technique. The warrior then unleashes her secret move, the slashing aura dance, with full force. Our protagonist is shocked by the overwhelming energy and realizes he can't dodge every strike. With no other option, he tries to block the attacks with his blade, but the force is too great. The impact sends his weapon flying from his grasp, leaving him unable to hold on. Seizing the moment, the warrior charges forward with everything to end the fight once and for all. Unarmed, our hero watches his blade soar through the air and knows he's in serious trouble. Swiftly, the female hunter catches his weapon midair with ease. Wearing a victorious smile, she declares she has caught the evil sword and that it's hers now. The young woman warns him that, unarmed and at a disadvantage, he should surrender. Suddenly, the warrior is stunned as white smoke envelopes her out of nowhere. The sword in her hand transforms into a branch, and she realizes she's been tricked by a fake item. Her eyes widen in pure shock as she falls right into his trap. Moments later, our protagonist appears behind her wielding the real weapon, ready to strike. With a precise blow, he hits the hunter's back, causing her to scream in pain from the attack. He then apologizes and reveals that the real sword had been in his hand the entire time. Our protagonist explains that the opening to set the trap was when she closed her eyes. The warrior refuses to give up, shouting that as an S-rank hunter, the fight isn't over yet. Suddenly, the blade's effect hits her, and she collapses to her knees, completely drained of strength. He tells her not to push herself since she can barely stand upright anymore. Tsukasa explains that the attack causes paralysis, making any movement impossible. He then tells her and the others that he won't harm them anymore and that they should rest. The female hunter, confused, asks why he's showing them such mercy. He replies that he has no intention of finishing them off and just wanted to end the pointless battle. With a serious expression, our protagonist says he won't do anything else and that she can relax. From there, he approaches her and asks her to believe that he's not an illegal hunter. She agrees, saying that the fact he's not finishing them is the strongest proof he isn't evil. The warrior then tries to apologize for the misunderstanding, but a strange noise interrupts them. Both go on alert, wondering what the heck that sound, coming out of nowhere, could be. The sound is actually the ground shaking with the arrival of a gigantic creature. At that moment, the stone monster the thug mentioned appears and faces the two. Our protagonist is shocked by the creature's size and wonders what it is. The female hunter warns that this is undoubtedly the true boss of the area. She then shows her high-performance sensor, which confirms the monster's identity. In the distance, the thug who had escaped also realizes this is the area's boss. Our protagonist turns and sees the illegal hunter who had run away earlier sprinting away. The stone creature then turns its head toward the man, as if tracking him. Without wasting any time, the monster strikes with its stone fist, smashing everything in its path. The impact sends the illegal hunter flying, and he screams in pain. Lying on the ground, he pleads desperately for help, fully aware of the danger he's in. Suddenly, a purple light appears before him, and he startles at the figure that emerges. With a serious expression, our protagonist confronts the man, who is frozen with fear. Holding a blade to his neck, Tsukasa asks if he was the one who brought the monster here. The man responds with a wicked smile, saying he had already told them about the incredible monster in the canyon. He explains that he woke the creature and unleashed it on the hunters. He continues, saying that even if he had just run, the monster would have chased him anyway. Then he reveals that he had intended to use the monster to buy time and escape. However, his plan backfired, and he ended up being the only one pursued by the creature. Our protagonist is irritated that he did all this, fully aware it was the boss. Suddenly, he spins around alertly as the giant creature prepares to strike again. The stone monster raises its fist, ready to crush them both with full force. With a powerful blow, the creature slams the ground, and our protagonist narrowly dodges. The female hunter then shouts for everyone to fall back, saying they can't fight in their current state. One of the hunters panics, screaming in desperation at the perilous situation. The warrior realizes the blasted monster is now targeting them. Without hesitation, Tsukasa activates his trap creation to draw the beast's attention. Summoning a magic circle, he prepares to launch an attack and provoke the monster. He then shouts for the rock-headed creature to come at him, declaring that he is its opponent. The female hunter, confused by his behavior, wonders what he's trying to do. With a furious expression, the stone monster turns to face our protagonist and follows him closely. He shouts for the creature to pursue him, knowing his plan is just beginning. He thinks he must lead the monster to a place easier to fight in and away from the others. With that, he runs off, the boss following and smashing everything in its path. Meanwhile, John and Mimi are by a river, and the elf senses something is wrong. She warns Mimi not to let her guard down, suspecting enemies nearby. The warrior approaches the riverbank, trying to assess the situation. Suddenly, she hears the sound of crumbling rocks and goes on high alert. A strong tremor shakes the area, and the two prepare for whatever is coming. The stone monster appears with our protagonist right on top of the beast. John is stunned by the sight, and Mimi is startled by the sudden arrival. Our hero calls out his ally's name, surprised to find her there. He then warns both to get ready for battle, as the fight is about to begin. With a determined look, our protagonist charges at the monster with everything he has. He shouts that they will defeat this area boss once and for all. He says combat is inevitable since the monster seems to have singled him out as its main target. With a worried expression, Tsukasa reflects that they need to break through that rigid body somehow. Suddenly, a golden flash appears behind them, catching our protagonist's attention. The female hunter uses her slashing aura dance and charges at the stone monster with full force. The strike lands dead on, but to everyone's surprise, it doesn't leave a single scratch. With a graceful step, the warrior lands beside our protagonist. She says they caught up and invites him to fight alongside them against the boss. Our protagonist offers a slight smile, not expecting them to return. The female hunter explains that thanks to him, they had time to recover and are now fine. Our hero, confused, asks how she knows his name. Suddenly, she reveals his file and says rumors that he wiped out a boss alone have spread. The warrior then introduces herself as Asahina Tsumuji, an S-rank hunter from the association. One hunter interrupts, shouting desperately about the area boss situation. He warns that the monster's defense is too tough and nothing seems to damage it. He adds that even her technique failed to scratch the beast. Tsumuji asks if he has any tactics to defeat this formidable enemy, believing someone as skilled as him should quickly devise a plan. She then pleads for his wisdom, saying they will risk their lives. Our protagonist is shocked. She barely knows him yet already places so much trust in him. He wonders if she's an extremely naive do-gooder or if there's more behind it. Still, he thinks at least now he has extra combat power for the battle. Suddenly, he recalls the concrete box he saw and comes up with a new idea. With a serious look, he asks if they're truly willing to fight under his command. The female hunter gives a slight smile, seeming to agree with his suggestion. The other hunters say there's nothing they can do since she decided, and they'll give it their all. So, the whole group moves toward the stone monster to start the plan.